Last week, I received the good news that the Federal University Oye-Ekiti is offering to confer on me an honorary doctorate degree in human kinetics on February 11, 2023. The reaction of all those that heard and read about it has been resounding. A deluge on the airwaves and on social media with very kind words and goodwill messages that can melt even Pharaoh's hardened heart. I have been overwhelmed with emotions. I do not know how to fully appreciate the completely unsolicited for honor by the university. And this appreciation, not just to the public or even to the university, but to the creator of the cosmos, who took this little bush boy talking to you this morning from the deep hinterland of Nigeria and threw him into the heart of one of the most sophisticated cultures on earth, Yoruba land, and left him to wonder, even with the talent that he was gifted with by the Creator. In the past few days, I have had to psychologically manage the deluge of goodwill messages from fans, family, friends, and even foes pretending to be anything but, and held myself in check from exploding with the excitement of such lavish acknowledgement for this exalted honor coming from the blue. At the end of the day, the feeling that filled the core of my being is that of gratitude. Gratitude to the Almighty. Well, this story starts from Jos. I'm going back to Jos in 1970, the year that the Beatles, the greatest band in the world at the time, did an epic song which has become really spiritual now, because it speaks to me, it speaks into my life. It's a great thing to listen to. This is an Afrocentric station, but from time to time we go beyond our Afrocentrism and admit those who speak our language. The title of the song is Let It Be. Let It Be. That was a great song by the Beatles. Speaks to my story, speaks to my spirit. So when I left Jos, a fledgling 17-year-old boy, freshly minted at St. Murumba College in Jos, and I followed my late cousin, Tunji Odegbami, the ITT guru. Most people know him. He's the one Odegbami that was more popular than myself. I followed him to Ibadan. I was going to prepare to enter the University of Ibadan for my prelims. And when I left Jos, I was actually venturing into the unknown, totally unprepared for any of the things that have become my life today. I didn't have the foggiest idea that anything that I'm doing today, I would do when I was leaving Jos. My only thought at the time was fulfilling my father's wish to get a proper education and become either a lawyer, like the great Yoruba sage and political leader, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, or an engineer. And my father never stopped drumming that into the ears of all of us, his children, until it became almost a sing-song tune. And I know when I came down to Ibadan that that same song was all over Yoruba land with Yoruba families. It's a rich tradition of their ancient civilization. They believed in education, they believed in their culture, and they captured it in so many ways. Let me lead you into that life of the Yoruba with a song that may not speak to it directly, but clearly demonstrates the rich history and culture and sophistication of the Yoruba person. It is done by my friend Jimmy Sholanke, Uncle Jimmy Sholanke. Just enjoy this song. Oruladugbo. Enjoy it. Welcome back, Eagle 7 Sports Radio, and this is Mathematical. 90 minutes with me this morning. So that's how I was thrown into the thickets of deep and rich Yoruba tradition and culture, and in fact civilization. You know, Yoruba is, I don't know, that's one tribe in the world that is truly, truly unique. I've been to several parts of the world, back and forth, and I can tell you that here in Yoruba land, the level and depth of civilization is almost unparalleled in the world. But you need to come here to come and see yourself. How we have now become what we are today, I do not understand. But yes, I was thrown into the thicket of Yoruba land, and football came along a few months into my sojourn in Ibadan. It was more a recreational pastime than anything else on my mind on the campus of the Polytechnic Ibadan, where I ended up studying mechanical engineering. It wasn't Polytechnic at the time, it was the Technical College. And you don't want to go into that whole story. But before long, football started to fetch me a small income here and there that was to change my life forever. I love to play the game in my spare time. A few friends took me to join a small club in Ibadan, and that move started to fetch me the occasional bonuses and transport fares that became some useful income that I never dreamt I could ever have. Soon, the club, NTC, started to win matches and some honors, and threw me into the whirlpool of popularity around town and on the campus. Both were to alter the trajectory of my life forever. But let me try and cut that long story short. 3 years after leaving Jos, I was invited to the national team of Nigeria. National team of Nigeria. That was, because I played for the West at that time at the first National Sports Festival in 1973. I was 21 and I was in school. Well, I was doing my IT at WNTV, WNPS at the time. And I was invited to the national football team of Nigeria. It was an impossible dream coming true that cold Harmattan period in December of 1973. The transformation of my mind from academic scholarship to new possibilities was conceived and molded in that totally unexpected invitation, which was an appreciation of my talent in football. I suspected then that there would be a price to pay and a sacrifice to be made. The national team in Lagos is not where you remain as a student in Ibadan. And until last week, and for the past half a century since then, that is in 1973, I have not been certain if my decision then was right or wrong until now. That is the significance of the honor bestowed on me by the Federal University Oye-Ekiti last week. My life since I stopped playing football in 1984 was never properly charted. I had ventured into several small businesses. You don't even want to know. I was selling Coca-Cola as a distributor. I was a cement distributor. I owned a restaurant. I owned a dry cleaning service. I was just doing all manner of things. Even as a football player, it was response to my fear of failing in life much later in the absence of better grounding in education. Good grounding in education, I knew, was the key. But here I was making a choice of going to the national team and playing football or continuing with my education. So I went into football cautiously, very afraid, and with justification too. The lives of those that were renowned footballers before me were not a good advertisement for life after football. There were too many uncertainties and ugly scenes in the pictures that I saw of the future. But the national team invitation was too alluring. I gave up going to the West Michigan University Kalamazoo with my 4 other classmates at the Polytechnic, where we had all secured admission for our first degrees in mechanical engineering. In choosing to remain in Nigerian football and pursue the newly introduced HND in Ibadan, it was being introduced for the very first time, I knew there would be a price to pay down the line. But I was determined to make the best of my wandering into this virgin territory. So I have been a serial entrepreneur, a nomad, and a restless soul for 50 years. The image of a footballer as a school dropout had to be changed. And the only way to do that is for me to earn respect and to be successful. So, from being a full-time football player for 14 years, 1970 to 1984, to browsing through the radar of society for what I could venture into safely and without much risk of ending up a dreg and a poor person in society, I searched for every scrap of opportunity in the sports stratosphere to succeed. The fear to fail became my obsession and drove me like crazy. Almost 40 years since I hung my football boots. I have not looked back. Traversing the world of sports, seeking opportunities, and leading the way in what I believed was a lucrative, untapped domestic industry. I became a restless soul, always on the move, using the advantages that football offered me to know a lot of people, to study the terrain, and to seek support to establish any line of work related to sports. It happened that I joined Sonny Obazo Jagbase to found the first all-sports newspaper in Nigeria. That became my baptism into the sports business. It became the largest circulating daily newspaper in Nigeria almost 20 years later. 6 years after teaming up with Sonny, I embarked on another journey on the side and established a sports company involved in television production. It was indeed uncharted territory, probably the first in the country, a pioneer cutting pathways for all others. I was a voluntary guinea pig of the sports business in Nigeria. That's how I got deeply involved and entrenched in journalism, particularly television. I'd been writing and reporting sports, even as a player, from 1979. I knew I had talent in writing. But with my own equipment and studios, I became a practicing journalist without any training, learning on the job, from the newsroom to the field, covering events, packaging documentaries, and developing content, mostly new programs in sports on television. Rapidly changing technology also meant trying to catch up with new equipment and so on. A very expensive business indeed. But being a pioneer, it had its own advantages. I blazed the trail in innovation in the sports media, setting the benchmarks for successors, particularly in television. That has been the journey for 4 decades. Me setting the pace and the standards in specialized sports publications, on television productions, events coverage and organization, consultancy, marketing, merchandising, managing of athletes, administration, well-being and health, and education. 20 years ago, I sought for a license to establish a radio station and also laid down the foundation stone of a sports secondary school and an academy. In 2007, the school admitted its first student athletes. It has sustained till now as probably the only one of its kind in the whole of this country, effectively combining sports and academics in equal proportion in the school. The school has had 12 sets of graduates that completed their secondary school education, as well as had great sports training. Many of them went on scholarship to the United States, over 60, admitted into colleges and universities on full scholarships. They graduated, and many are doing well today. And many are in a number of sports-related projects in different parts of the world. A few have become professional athletes and are doing well in Europe and America. 2 are playing professional football in Europe. Several, of course, remained and attended some Nigerian universities and polytechnics. Unfortunately, for most of those in this last group, the Nigerians that remained here and went to Nigerian universities and polytechnics, the Nigerian university system does not allow for maximum development of sports potentials in students, limiting their migration into professional sport. It took 18 years for the sports radio license to be granted me. Now it is running well in Abeokuta, and you are listening to me on that sports radio station. In all of my journey traversing the sports planet, there was always a nagging feeling of unfulfillment, of a void in my life, something missing that all the awards, honors, appointments, rewards could not fill. This past week, in a reaction by a few of my friends that I shared this information with, I found the true interpretation of what it means to have an honorary doctorate degree of a prestigious university that is neither bought nor solicited for, but earned through the merit of one's work and scholarship. That's why my gratitude is full in every way on this day, particularly to the creator of the universe, whose architectural design of my life he undertook even before I was born. There is no error in my choice of going into football and taking it to the zenith of my capability. I thank the Lord. I thank the Vice Chancellor, the Governing Council, the Senate, staff, and students of the Federal University of Oye-Ekiti for adding the last jigsaw to the puzzle of my life. I thank Professor Clement Ighodalo Erumosele My friend who is here with me in the studio, who last week opened my eyes finally to what now feels that empty void in my life, which today is now absolutely complete.